Welcome to my YouTube channel, and today I am reviewing the iPhone 6s. I was given an iPhone 6s from my granny a few weeks ago. Before I turn on the iPhone 6s, let's talk about the history of the iPhone 6s. The iPhone 6s is the 9th main iPhone, and along with its larger sibling, iPhone 6s Plus, was launched on September 9, 2015. iPhone 6s was released on September 25, 2015, for $199 plus contract, or $649, or £539 unlocked for the 16GB base model, with 64GB and 128GB models available for $100, or £80, and $200, or £160, more respectively. Despite the iPhone 6s's improvements, it actually sold less than the best-selling smartphone, iPhone 6, but it, with the larger sibling, eventually still became the 5th best-selling mobile phone in the world, with over 170 million units. iPhone 6s remained as a budget model after iPhone 7 was launched in September 2016 and was discontinued on September 12, 2018, with the launch of iPhone XS/XR. Let's talk about the design. The iPhone 6s uses the same familiar design as the very popular iPhone 6, with aluminum design. This specific aluminum material is 7000 series, which is stronger than on iPhone 6, which the latter had caused a famous issue called bendgate. iPhone 6s measures 138.3 millimeters long, 67.1 millimeters wide, and 7.1 millimeters thick, and weighs 143 grams, which is slightly thicker and heavier than iPhone 6 due to the implementation of 3D Touch. iPhone 6s comes in 4 colors, which are the familiar silver, space gray, and gold colors, as well as the all-new rose gold color. Mine is in silver color. The iPhone 6s features a home button with Touch ID, which is twice as fast as iPhone 5s or 6. At the back, it has an improved 12-megapixel rear eyesight camera with flash and subtle plastic cutouts for antennas. At the left, it has a ring/silent switch and volume buttons, and at the right, it has a power button and a SIM tray. And finally, at the bottom, it has stereo speakers, a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is the last mainline iPhone to have this, and a lightning port. Let's set up the iPhone 6s. I am booting up the phone and it takes around 22 seconds, which is not bad for a 10-year-old phone. Once it is booted up, I proceeded by choosing a language and region, which in this case is English and the United Kingdom, respectively. Next, I chose the preferred Wi-Fi network, and I am waiting for the phone to activate. Fortunately, this iPhone doesn't have activation lock after resetting the phone. I set up the default data and privacy settings and skipped Touch ID and passcode for now. I went to set it up as a new device. As expected, logging into my Apple ID on this iPhone is flawless. I entered my email address and password, and I had to enter the verification code to make sure it is mine. I agreed to the terms and conditions, and I went through the relevant pages such as Express settings, software updates, screen time, analytics, appearance, and display zoom. When the setup is finished by finally pressing the Get Started button, I am greeted with the iOS 15 home screen. This iPhone 6s currently runs iOS 15.7.3. iPhone 6s first launched with iOS 9 and received iOS 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and even iOS 15, making it the first iPhone to receive 6 major software updates. The iPhone 6s still receives security updates, with the most recent being iOS 15.8.5, released this month. iOS 16 dropped support for this iPhone, as well as iPhone SE first generation and iPhone 7, and iPod Touch 7th generation, and iOS 15 is 4 versions behind the current release, iOS 26. This iPhone 6s has 32 gigabytes of storage. Initially at launch, it came with 16, 64, or 128 gigabytes of storage. But in September 2016, 16 and 64 gigabyte models were discontinued and replaced by 32 gigabyte models as base configuration. As for storage used by system, it's almost 7 gigabytes. As for the battery health on iPhone 6s, the battery health is 83%, which is above 80% and seems respectable. As for the unique features, the iPhone 6s features some new features, with the one being 3D Touch, which is a first for an iPhone. Once you press an app in the home screen with more force, it opens a list of actions. That 3D Touch feature can be used to preview web pages as well as pictures. That feature, interestingly, can be used to weigh objects. Sadly, 3D Touch was removed in iPhone XR and then fully removed in iPhone 11 series. The iPhone 6s is the first iPhone to feature live photos, which captures the moments before and after the photo is taken. You can set different effects in live photos, such as live, loop, bounce, and long exposure. Let's talk about iOS 15 and the app compatibility. So, as I mentioned, iOS 15 is 4 generations behind iOS 26, meaning the app support is fading away and away. Right now, a number of apps are still compatible with iOS, including Google Search, Google Maps, Meta apps such as Facebook and Instagram, and most games, but they will very soon drop support for iOS 15. Anyways, if the app requires a higher iOS version and is already installed in a newer iOS device, this might give a prompt to install an older compatible version of that app. I have downloaded a good bunch of apps and games from the App Store, including Google Apps, Discord, Canva, and others. I am testing third-party apps on my iPhone 6s. Firstly, here is the Google app, which the latest version is still compatible with iOS 15. Google still works perfectly in the latest version. Next up is Chrome, which requires iOS 17 or later for the most recent version, but I installed the older iOS 15 compatible version of Chrome, and it still works for browsing websites. Next up is Google Workspace apps, which, although most no longer support iOS 15 in latest versions, still work in older versions. As for YouTube, the YouTube and YouTube Studio no longer supports iOS 15, but both still work in the older versions. If you have enjoying this video so far, please like my video and subscribe to my channel. This helps my channel so much. As for the other third-party apps, Discord still works in 2025 and is still supported on iOS 15. Much like Discord on iOS 12, I can send messages and polls, access servers, and much more. The last third-party app I tested is Canva, which is still also supported on iOS 15. Like Discord, I can create designs on that app. Most games are still supported on iOS 15, so I am testing some games on the iPhone 6s. This includes the post-popular games as well as classic games. The specific games I am testing are Candy Crush Saga, Hill Climb Racing, Subway Surfers, Temple Run, and Crossy Road, which all work very well without significant lag. The iPhone 6s is powered by Apple A9, which is a dual-core, 14 or 16 nanometer processor running at up to 1.85 gigahertz. The code name for these cores are called Twister, and it integrates an M9 motion coprocessor and a hexa-core PowerVR Series 7 XT running at 650 megahertz. It is paired with 2 gigabytes of RAM, which is a first for an iPhone. It is also the first iPhone to have a solid-state drive, improving app loading performance. Let's run the benchmarks of the iPhone 6s. As you can see in the Geekbench 6 benchmark, the iPhone 6s scored 617 for single-core and 809 for multi-core, which aren't bad for a 2015-era smartphone. I also ran the Antutu V10 benchmark, and it scored around 277,000 points. And in the web-based speedometer 2.1, it scored over 70 points. These benchmarks are comparable to a 2025 entry-level phone. I also tested the real-world performance of iPhone 6s with apps, and it is not actually bad for a 10-year-old smartphone. The iPhone 6s features a 12-megapixel rear camera, an upgrade from 8-megapixel in the predecessor, with 2.2 f-number aperture and 1/3-inch sensor size. For the first time in an iPhone, it supports 4K video recording at 30 frames per second, as well as 1080p 120 frame per second slow-mo. As for the front camera, it is upgraded from 1.2 megapixels to 5 megapixels, but only records 720p 30 frames per second. Only the Plus variant of 6s has optical image stabilization, while the regular 6s doesn't. Let's talk about the camera quality of the iPhone 6s. As you can see, compared to a 2025 mid-range phone like Samsung Galaxy A35 5G, the photos and videos taken on the iPhone 6s are not too bad.
The iPhone 6s features the same display as iPhone, with a 4.7-inch Retina HD display with a resolution of 1334 by 750 pixels, accounting for 326 pixel per inch pixel density. Compared to Android flagship or even mid-range phones of 2015, such as Samsung Galaxy S6 and A8 2015, which had sharper Full HD 1080p and even Quad HD 1440p displays, iPhone 6s can appear fairly pixelated when viewed very close, but it is sufficiently sharp when viewing from an average viewing distance. This display is IPS, which doesn't have the vivid colors or deep blacks of AMOLED found in Samsung phones, but it isn't too bad.
This wraps up this video. So, is the iPhone 6s still usable in 2025? Yes, the iPhone 6s is still fairly usable for most tasks right now. You can still access social media apps, as well as YouTube and most games. It also still receives security updates for the iPhone 6s. So, is it still worth it in 2025? This iPhone 6s is no longer worth it in 2025 as a primary phone due to the outdated iOS version, which is 4 generations behind, and therefore app compatibility, which many apps are requiring iOS 16, 17, or later. However, it can still be worth it in 2025 as a secondary or backup phone because it is inexpensive at only 30 to 35 pounds, used for a 32GB model, though don't buy the 16GB model. If you are looking for a cheap iPhone to use as a primary phone, iPhone SE 2, which runs the latest iOS 26, is a great choice at around 50 to 60 pounds, used for a 64GB model. So if you have enjoyed watching the video, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment if you still have an iPhone 6s.